First 15, now coached by Tom Manise, has seen some recent success, most notably with the promotion to Level 6 Rugby and defending champions of the infamous bog seats. However, there have been significant changes in how the game is played, the leadership and the structure of the game.
So I think I started when I was 5, so I think I had 2 years in the under 7s, I think it was then. And I remember my first ever memory was, it was one of the Spellman brothers trying to tackle them, and if you saw them now, they're absolutely massive. I remember being dragged about 40 metres by one of the Spellman brothers. I thought, is this really for me? But then I kept going and then just realised I just fell in love with the sport, loved everything about it, the sort of way you can sort of get your aggression out. And yeah, just from then on I've just been part of the Sills until this very day. Not playing anymore unfortunately, but yeah, still love to be part of it.
Well, I joined the old Silhillians Rugby Club as it was in those days in 1972, straight from school. At that time, the Silhillians were putting out 6 teams on a Saturday, together with a Colts and a Schools and Universities 15. We played without the benefit of league systems in those days, so we had a regular fixture list of home and away matches against predominantly old boys' sides. Old Vesians, old Saltlians, old Warwickians, to name just 3 of them. It was a very wonderful time. The clubhouse was always busy. We had a wonderful social life. And of course, in those days, prior to social media, the rugby club was a place where we all met, and you made arrangements to meet there the following week, and that's what happened. Ladies, funnily enough, were not allowed in the clubhouse before 8 o'clock, I think it was, or 8:30 in the evening on a Saturday. So things have changed quite considerably. But it's nonetheless, we had great fun.
My playing career down here started in 72-73 season. Back then we actually ran 6 sides, would you believe? I had my first game for the 6ths up here on the far pitches. My second game was in the 2nds, and my third game was in the 1st. 1976, a couple of nice turnouts for North Warwickshire under 23s, which Arney, Pete Thomas, was the captain of, even though he's allegedly younger than I am, but we all doubt that. And then I also got into the main North Warwickshire side, which was basically Solihull. And then unfortunately, Boxing Day 76 against Solihull up here. The guy put a high ball up, I chased after it, went to stop and ended up in the opposition's spectators, which was not much fun, with a knee that ached rather badly. Didn't ache, it actually bloody hurt. And I'd done the ACL and God knows what else to it. So that then put me out for 4 years. Got back here, realised I had to adapt my game because the knee didn't really work properly, or as it was, I'd lost that initial speed off the base of the scrum, which was a big weapon of mine. And eventually clawed my way back into the 1st and just carried on playing there until I think my last game was when I was 40 years of age, so I was pretty chuffed with that. I convinced Andrew Clutch to play in the game on Boxing Day. We said 10 minutes. Yeah. 15, 20 minutes of touch rugby whilst the spectators all arrived and got their beers and what have you, sort of finished us off. But we then ended up playing 20 minutes each way in a full-on game, 12 against 13, I think it was. But anyway, we came out winners, and I don't think Klutz has ever forgiven me for that. I played second row that day. Yep, I had to put my hand where you don't really want to put it, on Klutz. So it wasn't a pleasant experience. Luckily, there's only one line out where they put me up in the air. I'm still asking for oxygen now. And that's really weird. I don't think I've ever actually retired, but the body does now say no.
I joined in 1995. I wanted to play rugby. I started playing rugby for Woodrush, which was my dad's club, and all my mates played here, so the likes of Steve Hall, George Driscoll, a few mates from St Alfred's were playing here, so I said to my dad, I want to play at the Sills. He said, absolutely not. I said, oh, well, I'm not going to play rugby then. So it was either he had a son who played for the Sills or a son who didn't play rugby, and he chose a son who played for the Sills, although I think it was a tight decision.
I was actually a footballer when I first started and then switched over to rugby and joined the under-10s at Sills. Just one of my mates at school said, come along and give rugby a try. So I did, and it was one of the sports I kind of just took to naturally. Being a bit bigger than everyone else helped, obviously. But the sense of togetherness in rugby is quite special, and that was one of the first things I probably really enjoyed, and the sense of teamwork, there's a lot more than you've ever seen any other sport. And I kind of went from strength to strength then, really, and went all the way through the age groups, and enjoyed every year, got better and better and better. Went on tours as a minis and juniors. My parents loved that even more. They loved going to Dublin several times and enjoying that, and getting to know it's not just about the players as well, but our parents really loved the sense of community here, and we made some lifelong friends, and I've made some lifelong friends as well. So it's been a real special place for me, and it's a place where I call home, and where I first started rugby, and where I want to finish my career as well.
So it was straight out of uni, and I remember playing quite a good level at uni, but being frustrated that I was mainly kind of on the bench quite a lot. And I remember turning up, and we were playing a good level. I think it was level 6 or something, and actually being, this sounds really rude, but quite surprised at how high the standard was. And doing the whole pre-season, playing a pre-season game, and then kind of being told, that's it, you're in, and just basically thinking, I can finally play some proper rugby at a good level, and not take it actually as seriously as I was, but play every week, and play 80 minutes every week. So I remember being a little bit nervous, weirdly, at the start, first few games, thinking that you want to prove yourself, and then quickly kind of getting quite comfortable. I think first season, I ended up sharing the Player of the Year with a couple of other lads. So that was nice. I just remember it being very accepting in the unique way that rugby clubs kind of are, or were particularly at the time. So very welcoming in the sense that I immediately had the piss taken out of me constantly. But yeah, a very distinct memory of playing Bs in a pre-season game and thinking, yeah, this is proper rugby, and this is where I feel like I belong. A few of my mates also played straight out of uni, so it was a really nice atmosphere actually. And I think that's kind of why I'm still playing here.
I joined the Sills really because it covered everything that I wanted out of the game. It provided a good standard of rugby in a wonderful environment. The clubhouse, even prior to the clubhouse we have today, was still considered one of the better clubhouses in the area. The first 15 pitch, I still would say, and I would still argue, is probably one of the best first team pitches in the Midlands. It's certainly one of the only ones with a proper full dead ball area, which does throw the odd opposition occasionally when they don't expect 25 yards of dead ball to run around in. So yeah, it ticked every box for me. I also knew a lot of people up here and friends, and I think that's one of the things you look for. You look for your chums who you've played rugby with, perhaps at school in my case. We all came up and we all played together. So it really was a wonderful place to come.
People just naturally came to the old Sills, which we had 6 sides. And predominantly a lot of that was people would go off to university and they'd come back because, daddy or mummy had businesses in the area and they were taking over the businesses. Certainly in the 60s and the early 70s. Then it started to change. People were finding that you go to university and you had to go where the jobs were. and the jobs weren't back in the Midlands, you know. Travel was getting a lot easier, so people were then realising that they could work in Munich or, you know, anywhere really, anywhere in the world. And the whole world was opening up. And I think a lot of the pull back had gone. But for me, it was just that I'd played for the Colts when I was still at school, and it just seemed a natural thing to come up here with my mates. You know, there's something about this place that really, it's a very big social place, and it is a family, you know, and your friends are friends for life. You know, you've been in battle together, you know, not to put, you know, not too dramatic with that, but you've been out and you've been on that field together, you've worked hard for each other, and yeah, you've got to enjoy that friendship, and that friendship will go on forever.
I just think that the rugby club is a coming together of some like-minded people who are prepared to invest time in one another for their own kind of friendship benefits, but also to foster a real sense of belonging to all those involved in Sills rugby. My view is that the club very much subscribes to a work hard, play hard philosophy. I've no doubt that, and I know how successful this season's been, how players commit to training and to match days. Even the dead rubber that took place a matter of days ago was remarked on by the opposition, actually, and how strongly and keenly Sills fought, even though in theory there was nothing to play for. I mean, that in itself, you know, speaks volumes for the character and the personality that is a Sills rugby player.
I look back at it now and you realise how privileged I was to be selected as club captain and be given the responsibility. You're not just first team captain, you're club captain. It's responsibility for on the pitch activities as well as what's going off the pitch, first, seconds, thirds. You're involved in a lot of things, you're on committee. In those days it was not only buy the oranges and cut them up, bring them up here, but you used to put the posts out. When I was skipper, you ran training. You ran training for the club, or you knew someone, or you got someone who ran training for the club. We didn't have a paid coach until '99, so all of the captains from before me and after me, it was either someone who knew someone, or it was you did it yourself. If someone wasn't available, right, we're running around the pitch, we're doing this, we're doing that and the other. Generally, there was an older head around, hopefully, that could take either the forwards or the backs. Most of the time it was the backs with me, because I didn't really, and still don't really have a clue about what they do.
I remember Window and Klutz and Jim Roper were just like, oh, could we just have a quick Zoom chat? And I didn't think of anything. I thought, you know, probably what have I done the weekend before, really, on the touchline. But, you know, they were saying, you know, we thought it'd be a great idea. We're sorry to hear about your latest injury. Would you like to be club captain? I just thought, yeah, just jumped at the opportunity straight away. And it's something I've never really let go since. And I've always tried to, you know, look at ways to improve the club, I think. And I'd like to think the general culture of the club has improved since I've started. It's almost to sort of take the burden off the playing captain doing both the sort of administration tasks and also playing and sorting out the actual sort of team sheet, as it were. So my role sort of involve helping onboard sponsors. We this year also did player sponsorship, so each player gets their own sponsors, which has helped raise money for kits and stuff like that. Also sort of making the matchday experience as good as possible. So this year we've also added mascots into our sort of matchday routine to try and sort of give that one club identity. We've also had Ollie and Joe Bullock's dad running the sort of DJing and put music, intercom, that sort of thing. And generally just helping out with the coaches, making sure the kit's out, waters are done, and generally making sure the players have to think about as little things as possible apart from actually just playing the game, really.
Being made first team captain, incredible honour. I like the fact that it's immortalised on the board. in the clubhouse, because when you come back here, it's like, here's this guy walking in, that's Nick Soden, oh look, his name's on the board, so you're part of the history. Players come, players go. As regards responsibilities, in the mid-90s when I was skipper, you had to take training. We didn't have a coach. So on a wet Tuesday night or a Thursday night, you might have 7 people turn up, and you've got to try and do a training session. You select the team. You select the team on your own, off your own. No coaches or advisors here or there. You make all the phone calls to make sure you've got a team there. You make sure you've got your first aid bag, you've got your refreshments, you've got your pot of tea ready for half time and full time. So it was a full-time job. Fortunately, I was in a position where I could use the works phone and do a few things here and there, and I live fairly locally to the club, but sometimes on a Saturday lunchtime you'd be whizzing off in your car to go and fetch somebody because they couldn't get here. So yeah, it's a bit different these days, I think. But it was good. It was character building stuff, yeah.
If you remember, we had a season basically off with COVID, and the season before that I'd missed pretty much the whole thing with my knee. So we did effectively the kind of return to play protocols where we just trained for half a season basically, and then we managed to get 1 game at the end against Barkers, and I was asked to be captain for just that game. Managed to win, so that was great. And then in the summer we nominated 5 vice captains, and the plan was always to share the captaincy around for the first few games. But I ended up being basically the only fit candidate for the first few games, and and then it kind of snowballed from there really. It was seen to be doing a decent job, and then once all the kind of other vice captains were back fit, just decided to keep it going. So that was, I guess, 2021 too. And then by the end of that season, I think it was fair to say everyone just called me the first 15 captain, so they made it official that season. So I guess the process fell into it and then was kind of formalised last pre-season. So we had what I would say a pretty average start to the year before Christmas. I think we were 50% win, 50% loss. And we had a huge amount of injury problems, a lot of inconsistency, just loads of stuff that could be fixed. But that Christmas break really kind of brought the squad back together. And then we went on this ridiculous unbeaten run. We beat everyone in the league. I think we won 13 in a row. By sort of win sort of 7 or 8 in a row, you're looking at the league thinking, well, we were like 8th and now we're kind of 4th or 5th, but it's very close. So we start to think, well, if we just win all of our games, we might have a shot. And I think eventually we ended up 3rd by about a point, but I think we proved we were probably the best team in that league. And turns out 3 teams were getting promoted that year. So we confirmed it the second last game, and I remember that we scored the winning try, and I remember Moses losing his mind a little bit, screaming, and that was really, really nice. Bit of a celebration game, the last game. I think the main feeling was, looking retrospectively at it, a lot of pride, because at the time you kind of, obviously you're working full-time, training, play the game, then you recover, and you kind of just in that, it's almost like a grind, you kind of just keep churning the results out. And then afterwards looking back thinking, yeah, that's going to stay with me forever, because it's a huge amount of pride, and managed to avoid injury, so I was captain for all of those games. And the overwhelmingly positive feelings, I would say.
No other club had what we were doing. And I wasn't blazing a trail or anything like that. But over the years, all of a sudden, you then started finding other rugby clubs having somebody with their second team. As if, if the Sills can do it, we can do it. What a good idea. And it is important, because somebody has got to get the word out to the first team, to the head coach, whoever, that there are quality players. There are players who want to play. There are players who want to train, but they want to train properly, not like these 2 coaches that I won't mention wouldn't allow them to, because all they wanted the reserves to do is be cannon fodder, nothing else. Whereas now everybody's interchanging and everything else and training, which is great. I mean, Tom Manise is doing an absolutely fantastic job, he and his team, not just Tom, it's everybody involved. So now you've got the confidence that you can talk, and Tom and I do talk a lot, or James Arney in particular. We do talk a lot. you know, about what's going on, what we need to do. You know, they will ask me, well, where is there a problem in the Saxons? And we talk. So it was nice then to be able to come back and be able to see that other clubs are doing it. Because it was also making the games a lot better. Because all of a sudden, you're opposite. Because we went through a stage where we were pretty damn good, you know. Unfortunately, the numbers have just dwindled and we're not quite at that stage, although we've had some very good games this year again.
Set, 2, 3!
And give us a tap.
Oh no, I can't get the ball back. Ready,
We're looking for here. However, the flankers right and the 8 are a little bit.
Oh mate, we're gonna get up, get up.
Right, stand up, guys. Oh, Lewis, Jesus Christ.
Mate, I can't get up.
The first team fucking number 8. First team 8, and they're like, this is how you do it, guys. This is what you're about to see is excellence at the Silhillians level. I can hear someone fucking crying in the middle of the fucking square.
I was gonna die. Someone help me.
Someone help me. Did anybody else hear that?
All three of us said it.
Lewis said
No.
They were taking it out, but you're like, I could front
I got a call off window, Jim Roper actually. They said they had someone who they lined up to be coach. Evo had stepped down. They had someone lined up, but he had another season on his contract, so they wanted me and Beachy to take over as coaches, which was super exciting. Me and Beachy were good pals back from the playing days. We'd already been a captain and vice-captain pairing while he was club captain and I was vice-captain, and then, you know, eventually team captain when I managed to injure him. And then, so it was nice to rekindle that kind of partnership. And we had big ideas for the club, and I think one of the first things me and Beachy did was sit down and decide that it wasn't going to be a season, it was going to be a new thing for both of us. We had a meeting down here, had a pint and a piece of paper, and both of us were super keen for it to carry on and not just be a season, so we thought the best way of doing that was just to smash it. So I knew I had a certain level of skill set there of team management and coaching, but didn't fully, and then I knew I had the knowledge of rugby to coach at this level, but it was bringing the two together was trickier initially than expected. It was quite clear at first because we had Beachy backs me forwards, so that was very easy because I knew what I was doing with the forwards, and I knew that Beachy knew what he was doing with the backs. So we'd only need to talk properly once every few weeks about how it was working with both of us. But then when I took over as DOR, it was a little bit more complicated because we had to bring in much more of the club-wide things in. Me and Beachy didn't change that as far as our relationship went, but I think it's gone really well. I mean, we've got, as far as results concerned, we've done all right. We've got promoted, which was our aim. We've stayed up in that league, which was again our aim. So we're looking at moving forward now next season, which is definitely on the tick list.
I think there is a difference in the way that the rugby club is today as to what it was. Rugby was far more a game geared towards socialising and enjoying yourself and having a few beers with the opposition afterwards. That is something which I'm sad to see has disappeared in many ways, and I think it's disappeared most probably because of the introduction of the league systems. We played a regular fixture card year in, year out, and the net effect of that was that you got to know your opposite number over the years, and you looked forward to a battle with him every year that was coming, and it provided a wonderful sort of social exchange after the game. And I always remember the first captain I played under, which was a chap called John Houghton. John Houghton said to me that the most important thing for you to do after this game is to go and buy your opposition a pint. Now, I don't think today they have quite the same ethos as we did. They're certainly a lot fitter than we were. The game has changed dramatically in itself. In fact, to some degree, I don't really recognise the game that's played today as to the game that we played. But they're fitter, they're faster, they're stronger. But I don't think you can compare eras, because people often say to me, you know, was the first 15 in your time as good as the first 15 today? And I think that's a very difficult question to answer, because the whole ethos of the game was different. I still come up when they're at home and watch them play, and sometimes I'll travel away and watch them play, because it's good, entertaining rugby, and they seem to be enjoying it, and that's the important thing. I think certainly I have noticed in the bar over this season, in particular actually, that there has been a real bonding of the players, and they come up here and they come up en masse and enjoy themselves, which I think is a wonderful thing.